Good morning, grade 8. Our next lesson is about solving quadratic equations by using square roots. You remember how to apply square roots and how to get the root? Okay, so your objective is solve quadratic equations by using square roots. So we're going to solve. So last 9.6 we did factoring in finding the value of x or to solve quadratic equations. This time we're going to use the square roots property. Okay, so we all know that when we get the square root of a number, we find a number that when you multiply by itself, okay, that is the number that you're looking for inside the square root. So when you say square root of 9, so if you multiply 3 times 3, that is 9. So that's why the principal square root is 3, or the positive root. Okay, is it possible to have a negative 3? Yes, because if you multiply negative 3 times negative 3, the answer is also 9. Unless there is a negative outside the square root, because it's like just multiplying negative 1. Okay, so that's why the square root here, negative square root of 9 is negative 3. But take note of this. If you are getting the square root of 9, it can be 3 squared or bracket negative 3 squared, right? So that's why positive negative square root of 9 is equal to positive negative 3. So the roots are positive and negative 3. Got it? Okay, that's how you read it. Positive negative 3 or plus or minus 3. Okay, so to solve quadratic equation in the form of x squared equals a, so you have to take the square root of both sides. Okay, so in our quadratic equations, be sure that you isolate the variable with a square, so you can apply square root property both sides. So if you have x squared equals 15, square root of both sides, so it will be square root of x squared is equal to positive negative square root of 15. We all know that 15 is not a perfect square, so you can just put it inside the radical, or you can estimate it using your calculator in decimal point. Okay, let's have one more example. Example 1. Solve using square roots. Check your answer. Okay, so if you have x squared equals 169, so if we're going to write it, x squared equals 169. Okay, so you apply square root both sides. That's a square root property. So we all know that when you multiply x times x, that will be x squared. So the root of x squared is x. But this time I told you there will be two roots. Okay, what is positive negative square root of 169? Positive negative 13. So the values of x will be positive 13 and x is equal to negative 13. So those are the solutions of quadratic equations. X squared equals 169. This time you don't need to write in standard form. You have to isolate the one with an exponent of square or 2. Okay, so this is what we got. Okay, so let's try one more. What if there is x squared equals negative 49, and then you apply square root both sides? Square root of x squared equals square root of negative 49. Is there any number that when you multiply by itself, the answer is negative 49? So none. So which means there is no solution, because you cannot have 7 times 7 is negative 49, or negative 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. That will be positive, right? Okay, so there's no real solution, because there's no square root of a negative number. Remember that. Okay, so this one also applies square root property. Check it out. You have this in your book as well. Okay, this one there is no solution because it's negative. Okay, next, let's proceed to example 2. In example 2, you have to use square roots to solve quadratic equations. But before you do that, be sure that you isolate the x squared. Okay, this one. What do you do with x squared plus 7 equals 7? So you do minus 7 both sides. So when you do minus 7 both sides, you apply the square root property. So we all know that positive negative square root of 0 is 0. So the solution is only 0. Okay, another thing, this one, we need to isolate, right? Okay, the one with a variable with a square, or the degrees too. So which means if you have 16x squared minus 49 equals 0, so I'll show you how to solve it. So which means you have to do inverse operation, plus 49 plus 49. So cancel. So I have 16x squared is equal to 49. Okay, and then we divide both by 16. Then x squared is equal to 49 over 16. Okay, no need to simplify. Just apply square root property now. So square root. This is positive negative. Okay, so x squared, so square root of x squared is x, so is equal to positive negative. Get the square root one by one. The square root of 49 is what? Positive negative 7, right? Square root of 16 is what? Positive negative 4. So your solutions will be x is equal to 7 over 4 and x is equal to negative 7 over 4. Got it? Okay, so let's see from here. You have the PowerPoint there. So we got the same answer. Okay, so if you want to check, just substitute from the original. It will be equal to 0, so your solutions are correct. Even a positive 7 over 4 and a negative 7 over 4. Okay, that's example 2, huh? Okay, so just review and practice those questions in your PowerPoint and in your book. Okay, let's go to example 3. We don't have exact square root, or the number is not a perfect square, so we approximate the solutions. So solve and round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, you know what is the nearest hundredth, right? How many digits after decimal point? Okay, so the given is x squared equals 15. Okay, so apply square root property again, because anyway x squared is isolated, so it will be positive negative square root of 15. Or estimately, so when you press it in the calculator, it's positive negative 3.87. Okay, got it? That's example 3. The same thing as this. You can see you have negative 3x squared plus 90. So it's better to have a positive, right? Okay, x squared. So it's up to you if you want to do inverse operation in negative 3x squared, or the same thing as 90. Because anyway, if you subtract 90 both sides and you divide negative 3 both sides, it will be positive, right? Because negative 90 divided by negative 3 is positive 30. And then you apply the square root both sides. So that will be positive negative square root of 30. And we don't have a perfect square of 30. So the estimated is positive negative 5.48. Okay, this is example 3. Approximating solutions. Okay, so I have how many more examples here? Okay, going back to the graph, okay, because our x-intercepts, when we found the value or the approximate solutions, that is 5.48 and negative 5.48. Okay, using the graphing calculator, but if you want to try it in Desmos, you can see that you don't have an exact x-intercepts. Okay, that will pass through. The parabola is opening downward because it's negative 3x squared. But then the x-intercepts are 5.4 and negative 5.4, approximately 5.5. So it will pass through there. Okay, next. How about in this case? Okay, so you add x squared or you subtract 90. So you decide. Okay, so in here, they add x squared. So to make the x squared positive, so x squared equals 90. So the answer is positive negative 9.49, because the square root of 90 doesn't have a perfect square. Okay. Okay, so there are more examples there for example 3. So you can check it out also. But of course, if there is a negative square root of a negative number, so there is no solution. Okay, let's go to application. Okay, Ms. Persada is building a retaining wall. This is the last example. Along one of the long sides of her rectangular garden. So it's a rectangle. The garden is twice as long as it is wide. It also has an area of 578 square feet. What will be the length of the retaining wall? So you're looking for the length. And how do you find the area of rectangle first? Area is equal to length times width. So we have the representation of the length and the width, right? Okay, so they represent x as the width of the garden. Okay, and we have the given area there. Okay, let's put the formula first. A is equal to length times width. Okay, but why length is twice the width? You can find it there in the problem. The garden is twice as long as it is wide. Okay, so which means the length is twice its width. Okay, and then using the formula, so we substitute the area, that is 578. So the length is 2w, okay, or they can use 2x, and then the width is x. So to make it the same variable. Okay, so 2x times x is what? 2x squared. And this time you can apply square root property now. But 2x squared equals 578. You can divide by 2 first. Okay, if you divide by 2, it will be x squared is equal to what? 289. And then applying the square root property, so x is equal to positive negative square root of 289. Let's estimate, okay? Because it's, I think this is an exact, right? What is the perfect square of 289? What number that when you multiply by itself, the answer is 289? 17. So 17 times 17 is 289. So which means the answer is positive negative 17. Okay, but we avoid negative numbers because we're looking for dimensions, right? So we will use positive 17. Okay, so what will be the length and the width? So the width is 17, so the length will be twice its width. So 2W. So 34 feet is your length. Okay, question there? One more. Let's apply it in trapezoid. Okay, example 4 again. So this is a trapezoid. You have the dimensions. Base 1 and 2 is 2x and x, and then the height is 2x. What is asked here? Okay, when you read the problem, you are asked to find the width of the front yard, given that the area is 6,000 square feet. Round to the nearest foot. Okay, so they gave you the formula, and we're calling the formula of the area of a trapezoid. Okay, let's try to solve it. Okay, so using the formula half h times b sub 1 plus b sub 2 is equal to the area. Okay, substituting the area, that is 6,000. Okay, substituting the base 1 and base 2, that is x and 2x, going back to the figure, base 1, x and 2x. And then you have the height, that is 2x. So half times 2x is what? X, right? Okay, or if you want, you add first. 2x plus x equals what? 3x. Then half times 2x is x. So x times 3x is 3x squared. Okay, so then you divide both sides by 3. Okay, I think, okay, let me show you how did we add and multiply again. So the given is, the formula is half, the height is 2x, base 1 is 2x plus x, and the area is 6,000. Okay, we add 2x plus x is what? 3x. They'll cancel 2 and 2, so that's why this became x is equal to 6,000. So x times 3x is 3x squared is equal to 6,000. Then divide by 3, divide by 3. So which means x squared is what? Okay, what is the answer here? Let's continue here. Okay, so the answer is 2,000. Okay, so if it's 2,000, okay, so how did we come up with positive negative? Because we apply square root both sides. So we have x is equal to positive negative square root of 2,000. Is 2,000 a perfect square? Okay, so, or it's not. Okay, it's a perfect square. So 45 times 45 is 2,000. So that's why the answer is approximately, so this is not exact. So which means what is the square root of 2,000? Okay, let me get the accurate one. Square root of 2,000 is 44.7. Okay, so that's why they approximated. So 44.7. So estimately 45, positive, negative. So we all know we need to find the positive answer. Okay, that would make sense because we're looking for the width or dimension. So the width of the front yard is about 45 feet. Okay, hope you understand. Okay.